And the time has just gone 6:45. Welcome to everyone. Dylan, you can stop our screen sharing. And a huge welcome to everyone this evening. Lovely to have you here. And Nurock, you join us from Cape Town. I believe it was a lovely warm weekend in Cape Town.
It was absolutely gorgeous. How's it up there in Joburg?
It wasn't bad today. There's a little wind and a nip in the air, and I think it's starting to get colder. We've kind of dropping from 30 to 17. It's one of those weird summers.
Wow, okay.
So I want to ask Camilla, because you're wearing a Meta hat, but Meta's had a very tough few weeks. Share price down 64% in a year, dropped 24% yesterday. Are we hiding the hat now?
There we go. We'll hide the hat. No, I've got plenty of friends who work very hard for Meta, and they have helped support me in a lot of campaigns. But yes, it has been sort of tricky times.
So how are you seeing engagement on the different Meta platforms? On Facebook, on Instagram? Are people still engaging on those platforms, or are you seeing a kind of drop-off?
Oh, more than ever. If anything, it's going up exponentially. I mean, obviously, there are other platforms that are sort of creeping into the mix, things like TikTok. But Facebook and Instagram are still huge, especially in South Africa, and especially in our more emerging markets. I think, the spread of smartphones is just about taken over, which means for a lot of people in South Africa and Africa, it is the first sort of time experience the internet, experiencing the world, and Facebook and Instagram are a big part of that. But obviously used in very different ways, which is why as advertisers, we've got to respect the different platforms and treat them as such.
Cool. So Doug, I want to know, does Nando's have a TikTok account?
No, it doesn't, not yet. It does in a couple of countries from around the world. There's still quite a lot of concerns around brand safety on TikTok. The transparency of data reporting also somewhat alarming. So we posted a few things. It's very definitely in trial, but the ad fraud is a huge concern in all facets of the internet. When there's an incentive per eyeball, there's obviously not always a lot of eyeballs that are real eyeballs. So you want to be cautious before emptying up the war chest into new platforms. That tends to be quite late to these sort of parties. I know we only joined Twitter in 2014, we launched Instagram this year.
Okay, you're getting there. You're getting there.
Well, we'd rather be late and best than early and worst. And maybe we're late and worst. Who knows?
Mandi Fine, your clientele probably fit into a slightly different demographic. Do they use the social media platforms?
Oh, absolutely. If you think about all the health messaging that happened in the last 2 years, social platforms were critical for health information to the whole nation and everybody. So absolutely. TikTok is not a pharmaceutical or a big health insurer's main channel yet, but we're watching carefully. But certainly Instagram and Facebook are huge. GDN, we're spending a lot of money in digital.
Does Twitter have a place in South Africa?
I think Twitter does. Certainly from an influencer perspective, there are a lot of influencers using Twitter to, very successfully. And I think brands are too. Absolutely. But it's something Anne, you've got to be very proactive, and that management of a Twitter channel is really is 24/7. So I think that's the caution there, is management of that channel and being very responsive.
So Nkgabiseng, one of the things that you're going to show us this evening is in fact quite a political advert that comes from the United States. I want to talk about how politics in South Africa works. We're obviously very, very close to an election coming up soon. How do you think political parties should be getting their messages out?
Hi, it's such a big question, but I think, in South Africa, we've kind of relied on traditional media from a politics perspective, our street polls, television, radio, and so on. But I think the time has come to like really go where people are. I don't believe social media has been used quite as well as it can be to connect with people, certainly not to peddle fake news or draw them into wormholes, but like just to connect with them and understand what they want. So I think political parties should be using social media to listen and respond.
And are brands genuinely listening and responding at the moment?
I think so. I think a lot of brands are. I think that in certain respects, consumers don't, and I think we're going to see this in my presentation, consumers don't trust government, they don't trust politicians to make a difference in the world. So who they're turning to, a lot of the times they're turning to brands. I think brands have become a lot more responsible than they used to be because they have to be, and there's nowhere to hide anymore. So a brand that behaves irresponsibly is going to be caught out. So are they behaving responsibly? I think they are, for the most.
But
Camilla,
Twitter is terrifying. Twitter is a terrifying platform for anyone in advertising. I think, you can put something out there with the very best of intentions, and one person can mistake it for representing or meaning something else, and then it's in the hands of the public. So it's a scary channel, but I think it's a worthwhile channel if you do it correctly. We have plenty of tools that are consistently scraping Twitter in order to find the most relevant conversations and where our brands are involved, and trying as best we can to understand people better, understand the consumers better. But it's tough out there. That's why I've got these black rings, because every day there's a new story on Twitter that we have to get to.
And I think, just to say quickly, I think it's going to get worse on Twitter with Elon Musk, because he's not moderating it the way it was before. Already since he bought it, I read somewhere that the N-word had gone up by 3,000% on Twitter. I think it's really dangerous. And I think that it is, as Camilla said, it's a very dangerous platform. I think it's going to become even worse under Elon Musk. Nkgabiseng, would you agree with me?
I think it has the potential, like with fire, you want to use it for the right things, right? We can't avoid fire. And I feel like Twitter is kind of the same. The thing that I would say from a brand perspective is brands don't have to say anything on Twitter. You can decide that Twitter is your listening platform. You really can. And then you can go elsewhere where you feel more relevant to speak. But I think the pressure to force yourself to speak on Twitter and then, open yourselves up to attack or to conversations you're not ready to have, that becomes dangerous. And with the changes that Musk has put in place, it's definitely going to be even trickier for brands, and even more volatile for people. So I don't think you have to say anything, but you can definitely use the platform to see what people are saying.
So for those people who've joined us, we're going to go live at 7 o'clock in about 6 or 7 minutes time. But if you've joined us already, we're just having a pre-chat, and please let us know where in the world you are. I see, Linda, you've logged in from San Diego. A big welcome to you. And Anne and Doug, when we discussed last year, because we did a very similar panel last year, and there appeared to me that many of the brands were trying to be, for want of a better description, woke. And we know, as the world has divided, there's been this huge backlash against wokeness from many, many people as well. Doug, you as a brand, you're never frightened of pissing people off.
Oh, what do you mean? I'm terrified of pissing people off. No, I generally do mean that. What I'm terrified, probably a strong word. Like, we don't want to upset anybody. I mean, maybe a minority of assholes. But generally what we're looking for is consensus. What do people mostly agree about? Most people agree load shedding is terrible. Most people agree that corruption is terrible for everybody. And so we tend to aim to stand with the majority and try to understand where is the majority view. And I think you asked a question. I mean, the pejorative term woke is problematic. I think brands do, and I'll save this for the end. I think brands do genuinely want to make a meaningful contribution to the world in which they operate in. because that engenders a sense of trust, a sense of good value exchange, and they want to be seen as good moral citizens. And that's kind of an insurance account as much as anything else, so that when bad things happen, and bad things do happen, if you're Adidas and Kanye West, as per your advert for tonight happens, then you want to be able to draw down on other good things that you've been able to do. But I don't think it's as clear as perhaps it was made out to be 3 or 4 years ago. And I don't know if there's been a backlash on it, but there's certainly been less commercial value in being purpose-driven than perhaps was initially promised. But I'll save my ammo for that for later. So there's a trailer for you.
Mandi, you've judged Cannes before, and one of the big questions is, some of the creative work that we're going to be looking at tonight is remarkable, but does it sell?
I think the year that I judged Cannes, there was a study that was presented by one of the large consulting firms at the opening of Cannes, where they proved that creativity goes to the bottom line. And I would love to believe that, because I see it and I do believe it. I think if it doesn't sell, it creates awareness and a conversation and a narrative and brings things to light. And some of the ads we might see tonight, we can argue whether they sell or they lift the voice of a cause or a platform for conversation. And I think that's sometimes just as important. So I would like to say yes to that.
Camilla, I want to know what happens in the office when you're responsible for one of the remarkable ads we're going to be seeing tonight. And you didn't just win in Cannes, you won at the Loeries, you just won another Grand Prix. And now, what happens in the office when you bring back those awards? Does everyone say, oh, okay, really nice, it goes on the shelf? Or do we understand the remarkable talent that we have in this country when it comes to the world of creative advertising?
Well, firstly, everyone goes, what next? So the pressure goes up. But I think there's huge importance in taking a moment to acknowledge the hard work, the hard graft that has been put into these projects. One of the pieces you'll see, I think a bit later, Bride Armor, I mean, that was a year and a half of almost bleeding from the eyeballs to get that piece done. But it's because we all came together behind a cause that we truly believed in. I mean, it takes a village to create this kind of work. And I think it's, as important to acknowledge not just the wins on stage. I mean, those are great. But what matters, I think, most to me and most to us as a team is winning for a client, creating real brand impact. I'd love to speak a bit later about how I honestly believe that purpose leads to profit, but being able to see the brand sales escalating. And then, yes, we do return with the big spirit of what's next. It's in an uncomfortable situation, because how do we beat that? But we want to, because we all back it. So yes, that's what I'm in the process of doing right now.
As we say hello to everyone who's busy joining us, and we're going to go live in a few minutes' time, just to tell people that, for example, Linda's in San Diego, Rene's in Bantry Bay, Yakov Kutsia's in Port Elizabeth, Tabo is joining us from South Africa, but I'm not sure where. Sandra is in Vancouver, Gail is in Israel, Jocelyn is in Dubai. We've really got an unbelievable international audience tonight. But I want to know, when you walk in, Camilla, when you walk into a brand like Carling Black Label, which is kind of a manly beer, and you say, yes, I want to do a marketing campaign around a wedding dress, do all the executives around the table go, what is the response?
Well, I think you got the response quite, you did quite well there. It is a bit of this and a bit of why and what is the reason. But, we've got to work as partners in this. If we didn't, we'd never achieve on this journey. So they hand us briefs that they believe will create the most provocative work. They want to create awareness. They want to create discussions that happen around brides, that happen sort of in sort of settings like this. And that's what they say. And they say, don't bring anything back that doesn't absolutely terrify us. And we do, and they get terrified, and then we don't hear from them for like a week. It's almost like the silent treatment. And then we'll get one text that says, let's have a call. And that's how it starts. But then we work together to make the dream come to life. And there's a lot of arguing, but that's how it makes the work better.
Doug, are you a fantastic client? Does your ad agency love you? Or do you think your ad agency fears a little? And just before you answer that, hi to Carol, who's in Sea Point, Vickers in Johannesburg, Sandra's in Cape Town, Michael is in Wayland, just outside Boston, Natalie is in Camps Bay, Vanessa is in Florida, Andy is in Glen Hazel. A huge welcome to you all and everyone else who's joining us this evening. We're going to go live properly in 1 minute, but I want to ask Doug if he's a fantastic client or if his ad agency hates him.
I think you should ask the ad agency. In fact, I should ask Anne. She's two doors down. She referees a lot of the relationships we have with marketers around the world. Actually, between ourselves, it's a bit like a marriage. You know, you have good times and you have bad times, and you have to fight enough to care about the marriage. We're in final stages of a big commercial at the moment, which hopefully will be finished in the next couple of days. So we probably need a break from each other after that. But I think being bored and checking out and aiming at a lot of average, which I think honestly a lot of advertisers do, because the internet is a scary place. And one way to avoid being scared is to be average, is to be mediocre, to aim at something that's safe. But that's a way bigger concern for me than having the necessary tension to fight for something new and fresh and bold and difficult and different. I mean, it's the 20s. Gosh, it's not been an easy time, and it doesn't look like it's going to get easy anytime soon. So aiming at average is a guaranteed way to suffer and cause pain for everybody involved. So I'm a lot more worried about that, and that's worth perhaps getting into some creative tangles over.
I used to have a sign on my wall that says, "The thought of mediocrity scares me to hell."
There we go. I love it. Let's get that on a t-shirt.
So, ladies and gentlemen, a huge welcome to everyone. The time has just gone 7 p.m. And on behalf of the South African Jewish Report, I welcome you all around the world to the 141st webinar of the South African Jewish Report that we began as a one-off 140 ago in order to help the people of South Africa get through the period of lockdown. And since then, we've been watched 2.5 million times by people around the world. So whether you're watching us in South Africa or you're watching us around the world, I see we have people in London and Rondebosch and Cape Town and Johannesburg. A huge welcome to everyone, especially those of you watching us on Zoom, on YouTube and on Facebook. Dylan, you're on controls this evening. Thank you. You can wave at everyone so everyone knows who you are.
Good evening.
And you're going to be monitoring the chat on YouTube and Facebook. So please, we want this to be a conversation. We don't want this to be a monologue. So please, we're asking everyone, give us a comment, ask questions, send through some input and be part of this conversation with us this evening, because that's what makes the largest live webinar channel in Africa. It really is everyone's participation in what we do. So a huge welcome to everyone. A reminder, of course, this is brought to you by the South African Jewish Report newspaper, and we are publishing again. The Jewish holidays are finally over after weeks and weeks and weeks of Jewish holidays. So if you haven't picked up your copy of the South African Jewish Report, please go and do so. You'll find a copy in Checkers or Pick and Pay or CNA or Spar or your garage shop or your butchery or at your school or your synagogue. We're everywhere in about 248 locations around the country. Very interesting newspaper this week. Obviously, the terrorism threat that was in Sandton this past weekend was top of everyone's minds, and I gave a talk to some cardiologists in Sandton today. I must admit, I was a little frightened when I drove into the Sandton Convention Center. So our experts said, be vigilant, but don't panic. And it looks like the weekend has gotten off without any major damage to any of us. So a huge thank you to all of our security forces. And I'm going to say something controversial as well. I'm going to say a huge thank you to the Americans for letting us know that there was a problem and a danger so we could take the appropriate action. So that's on the front cover of the Jewish Report this week. Also, the fact that Carol Steinberg, in fact, got Mpo Palazzi her job back as mayor of Johannesburg. We'll see how long that lasts for. But if you haven't been able to pick up a hard copy of the South African Jewish news report. Please don't forget, you can go online to www.sajr.co.za. About 54,000 people every month go on and either download the entire edition of the newspaper or look at the individual articles as well. But it's amazing that our audiences around the world, especially many people who once lived in South Africa, are still reading us no matter where they are in the world. And also a big reminder as well that you can book for Jewish Achiever Awards. Jewish Achiever Awards are on the 19th of November. We have a spectacular evening planned for you. So if you want to book a table or seats for Jewish Achiever Awards, the bit.ly link is JAA 2022 book. And I promise you, not only will we have 9 of the most remarkable winners that you've ever seen in South Africa, 9 remarkable people who are building the post-apartheid South Africa. And I can tell you that one of the people on the panel tonight is a contestant. And Nurock, you're a contestant in the Europcar Women in Leadership Award. You came in for judging a week or so ago. How was it?
Yeah, it was fun. I mean, I found it a little stressful, but that's me. I thought the judges were great. I thought the questions were really insightful. Yeah, I enjoyed it, but yeah, I did. They were great. I just found it quite stressful, but yeah, looking forward to the 19th.
So the 19th, we have an evening of remarkable entertainment because we've got Harry Sideropoulos who's going to be emceeing the evening and performing. We've got Chilean acrobats who are going to be swinging from the roof. We've got tap dancers. We've got hip-hop dancers. We're going to have an amazing evening with DJs and entertainment. So if you haven't booked your table, Dylan has put in the chat on Zoom, on YouTube and on Facebook, you can go and book your table for Jewish Achiever Awards. And a huge welcome to those people who've just told us. I see Hillary is watching us in New York. Susan is in London. Let's see where else. Brenda is in Morningside. David is in New York. Jackie is in Cape Town. Hillary Joffe is in Cape Town. Viv is in Harare. It's amazing. The world has made us so smaller. Boris is watching us from Texas. Jen is in London. Got people in Randburg and Hermanus and Cape Town. Got people in California watching us as well. So with that, Anne Nurock, tell us, for those of us who've been sleeping, what are the Cannes Lion Awards?
Okay, so Howie, would you like me to share my screen right now?
Well, first tell us what they are, and then the rest of us in 2 minutes, as soon as you've finished, we're going to turn off all our cameras, and we're going to give you the floor to give us an introduction, and then we're going to come back and look at and discuss some of the dramatic work that you show us, as well as everyone else's favorite ads. So
the Cannes Lion International Festival of Creativity is 5 days which is obviously held in Cannes, which is really, it's like the Oscars of advertising, where absolute all creativity is celebrated. It used to be called the Cannes Lion Festival of Advertising, but now it's bigger than advertising. And they look at all categories, be it innovation, media, PR, it is just integrated. They look at all those categories and they have judges from around the world judging what is the best creativity in the world. It's remarkable. In addition to all the awards, there are also probably about 200 talks. And for me, that's kind of one of the best parts of it, where you have trendsetters, you have leaders, you have marketing directors and CEOs from all the top companies around the world that come to Cannes and talk about, and here's the thing, how creativity affects their business and the difference that creativity can make to business and make to society. You know, you have people from all walks of life that come there to talk about the effect of creativity in their worlds and how creativity can change the world, which I hope you're going to see tonight from some of the work.
Fantastic. And we're all going to turn off our cameras and our microphones. We're going to leave you with setting the trend and giving us some examples. You'll tell us when you're ready to have a panel discussion with us.
Thank you. Okay, I think if you can all see my screen, Howie, can you see it? And then
we can indeed. You're on.
Okay, so the irony is that this year, for the first time in the last kind of 10 years pre-COVID, I never got to go to Cannes for personal reasons. So the first day I walked around in this really deep funk, which was made a lot worse by Camilla sending me pics with all our friends saying, wish you were here. And then I basically jumped in front of the computer, and for 5 days I watched the awards every single night. I watched most of the talks, the interviews, I read everything. And I think at the end of it, I got to know more about what was going on in Cannes than the people who were there, who were all partying. But the overarching feeling that I got just watching everything and at the awards at night was just this absolute joy and excitement to be back together after 3 years. There was a sense of collaboration, and the whole thing about being better together permeated everything. But there were also some clouds hanging over Cannes. A couple of 1,000 kilometers away, a war was being fought in Ukraine, and also the increases in inflation and interest rates was contributing to the threat of recession. But for me, the overarching theme of Cannes this year was this, and it was mentioned time and time again. And this is what I inherently believe, is that creativity is a force for growth and therefore a force for good. It's good for the economy, it's good for society, and it's good for the planet. This was mentioned first by Mark Pritchard from Procter & Gamble. It was reiterated by AB InBev, and it was mentioned right throughout the festival. So there were a couple of themes that Cannes covered this year, and I'm going to start with, and in the essence of time, I haven't been able to put all of them in, but the first one I'm going to talk about, because I think it's really important, is business transformation. So while this talk is usually for people who are classical marketers, all the things that I'm going to talk about here with transformative companies is relevant to every business. And also the fact that creativity is a force for growth is also relevant for any company. Whether you are a classical marketer, you're a lawyer, you're a doctor, creativity will play a part in your business. But what we saw is that brands with an appetite for risk, unconventional thinking, and creative problem solving are reinventing their business operations to drive transformative change. The whole thing is that brands need to be open to collaboration and partnerships, because confident brands have more flexibility. And brands that tend to protect themselves create rigidity, where no one gets to interact. And that stance lacks confidence. And it was very interesting that somebody said a brand that is co-owned and co-authored by a lot of people, that's really cool. And I'm going to show you a case study a bit later that demonstrates this. The other thing about transformative companies, and again, I'm stressing it's any company, they understand the power of imagination to unlock growth. These brands also seek expansion. They take creativity and they apply it up and down the value chain. It's not just about creativity in marketing. It's throughout the entire business. The other thing that we saw is that a lot of brands are stepping outside of their category. And this is really interesting. And there's an amazing example that I'm going to show you now. It's for a pineapple producer in the Philippines called Dole.
Every year, over 2.5 million tons of pineapples are grown in the Philippines. While the fruit is packaged to feed people all over the world, pineapple leaves are left behind. For every ton of pineapples harvested, 3 tons of leaves are wasted, and when left to rot could create methane emissions over 20 times more harmful than CO2. To make a change, Dole, one of the largest producers of pineapples in the world, partnered with Ananasanam to produce Piñatex, a vegan, cruelty-free, and sustainable leather alternative made from the fiber of pineapple leaves that would otherwise go to waste.
If we compare Piñatex with leather, Piñatex has a much better environmental credentials. It doesn't use any water, any land, any fertilizers.
While other vegan alternatives are plastic-based and ecologically toxic, Piñatex is a sustainably sourced textile with a closed-loop production. After the rescued pineapple leaves become Piñatex, the residual leaf biomass is converted into natural fertilizer, providing a truly eco-friendly option for the fashion industry. Over 200 brands in more than 80 countries are now using Piñatex to become more sustainable, including Hugo Boss, H&M, and Nike, who use Piñatex to create their Happy Pineapple sneakers.
The Dole Ananas Anam partnership through Piñatex is the perfect way for us to breathe second life into our waste. This is the first step in our journey towards circularity, whilst helping farmers turn waste into an income opportunity.
Piñatex is part of Dole's ongoing efforts to achieve zero waste from its farms by 2025. By upcycling waste, we are creating change beyond the food industry, giving fashion brands a true green answer to leather.
I think that's just pretty remarkable in terms of sustainability. So this man is Mark Pritchard. He's the global CMO of Procter & Gamble, who's probably one of the biggest advertisers in the world. And every time he says anything at Cannes, everybody listens. But I think what was really interesting, and I think what is also not interesting, relevant to people, are his views on creativity. So he says creativity has to feel personal. It starts with meaningful insights that touch hearts and minds. Creativity must communicate performance. Performance matters. Creativity needs to solve problems. And then the part that I love most is creativity must build trusted partnerships, because the best creative comes from trusted partnerships. And this for me was also said by Marcel Marcondes, who is the global CMO of AB InBev, who was Marketer of the Year this year. AB InBev is the company that bought SAB. And what I loved about what Marcel said, it ties back to my day job, which is analyzing the health of business-to-business relationships, and primarily in marketing services between clients and agencies. And what I see all the time is that the best creative comes from the best partnerships. Agencies want to take risks, but clients will only allow agencies to take risks if there's trust. So Marcel also said that, and I love this particular thing that he said, was that small companies have great intentions, big companies get things done. And at AB InBev, creativity transcends advertising. They really try to connect creativity with solutions. They don't fall in love with the problem. They want creative solutions for business and consumers in order to drive growth. So here is a campaign from AB InBev that is particularly relevant.
El mar me ha dado todo. Nosotros, en cambio, le devolvemos basura.
This huge amount of plastic affects both marine wildlife and fishing communities.
Hoje tem muito mais plástico no mar do que peixe.
Corona has long been associated with beach life and its preservation. This time, we decided to take our commitments deep into the ocean.
Corona convoca a su campeonato de pesca de plástico.
本周六早上8点，
Limpe o oceano e ganhe dinheiro.
We invited fishermen to participate in the first ever plastic fishing tournament, a global scale initiative where fishermen were rewarded for fishing plastic waste from the sea. The more they caught, the more money they made.
Y ahora sí, vámonos.
搬家山清理垃圾，我们高兴。
יוצאים לדרך! אם אין זיהום בים, בטח הדג נכנס. יהיה טוב גם לדייגים, לפרנסה.
You may catch the plastic any which way you like.
O plástico, que era um problema pra gente, hoje está virando uma renda extra.
We connected hundreds of fishermen with recycling companies, so from now on, they could earn a second income by selling plastic all year round.
A partir de ahora el plástico nos va a dar más ganancia para nosotros.
trim is just to keep the ocean clean, then in order that our new generation can get fish.
And here's another campaign from AB InBev. When it comes to AI, artificial intelligence, I think this really is best in class.
Now on the court, John McEnroe.
You cannot be serious! Get away from me!
Welcome to Michelob Ultra, McEnroe versus McEnroe, one of the most exciting moments in the history of tennis.
On one side, John McEnroe playing on a real tennis court.
On the other side, virtual John McEnroe.
Ready to face yourself? Whoa, okay. Bring it on, man. Let's do this. How the hell did they do this?
After analysing every single match in John's career, each avatar was programmed with adaptive artificial intelligence.
An Unreal Engine will control where the robots are positioned, how fast the tennis ball is going to go, and what kind of spin the ball is going to do as well.
To accurately replicate McEnroe's style of play of his career.
This is a fog screen, technically the smallest molecule of water you can see with your eyes. The cool thing about it is you can project on it.
Which John can play a ball to, and the ball will pass through that.
You cannot be serious!
And it started out with this one thing.
Hang on, hold my beer.
So, as I said earlier in the pre-chat, people have really lost all faith and trust in government and politicians. And they really are turning to brands to see what brands can do to change the world. But now brands are turning to creativity to help develop sustainable initiatives. And what they are asking is that what they expect creativity to do is to actually convert one-off experiments into everyday initiatives. We so often see one-off initiatives in sustainability, but that's not good enough. They need to become everyday initiatives. Also, there's continued evidence that proves that sustainable business solutions deliver long-term growth and shareholder returns. But one of the most important things is that sustainable materials and supply chains often come with a big price tag. And that's a factor that can dissuade consumers from making ethical choices. So the industry needs to really focus on how they can use their creative skills to democratize sustainability so that it's accessible to all. So the next campaign I'm going to show you won the Grand Prix for good. I have to warn you that it is absolutely harrowing, but it's very important that everybody sees it and more should be done about it, but it is harrowing.
Ready? We rolling? Okay, Ralph, can you mark it, please?
Do you want me to click it now?
Yep, go for it. Go on.
Like that?
Brilliant.
Oh, it's like in the movies. Alrighty, so my name's Ralph. I'm a rabbit, as you can see. I'm blind in my right eye, and this ear. Can't hear nothing but ringing now. Yeah, it's annoying, isn't it? Yeah. So I had my fur shaved and got chemical burns up and down my back. Kind of stings, eh? But it's not a big deal. It only really hurts when I, like, breathe or move around or whatever. Ah, yeah. Ow. Yeah, that hurts. But at the end of the day, I mean, it's okay. We do it for the humans, right? They're far superior to us animals. They've even been to space. Have you ever seen a rabbit in a rocket ship? Oh, I don't think so. Point is, I'm not a space bunny. I'm a tester. My daddy was a tester, my mum, my brothers, my sisters, my kids, all testers. And they all died doing their job. Just like I will. But it's okay. Testing is what we were born to do. It makes us rabbits happy. Yeah. Oh, gotta get to work. Now I know it looks bad, but the way I see it, I'm doing my job. If just one human can have the illusion of a safer lipstick or deodorant or...
Hey, Ralphie! Psst. Ralphie! What's with the camera crew, bro?
They're just following me around, making a documentary or something.
Can you ask them to get us out of here?
Yeah, what will we see?
Come on, Ralphie, just ask them to get us out of here. I don't want to die, man.
Okay,
Ralphie!
Okay, I hear you. You can edit that out, right? Oh, here we go.
Hey, don't touch it!
Oh, shit! So in closing, I'd just like to say that...
Sorry, Ralph. We're over here. Can you turn around?
Oh, sorry.
That's all right.
Is this better?
Yeah. Carry on, mate.
Okay, so, yeah. I'd just like to say to everyone out there still buying animal-tested cosmetics like eyeliner, shampoo, sunscreen, pretty much everything in your bathroom. Well, without you and countries that allow animal testing, I'd be out of a job. I'd be on the streets. Well, not the streets, more like a field, I guess. You know, like a normal rabbit. But hey. It's all good.
Yeah, Ricky Gervais were one of the people behind that campaign. So here is something that is a little more.
In 2021, the WHO estimated 400 million dengue cases in India per year. The number of cases have increased over 30-fold in the last 5 decades. While Indians use mosquito-repelling coils inside the house, the real problem lies outside. Garbage collection points in India are breeding grounds for mosquitoes because all they need is just 1 centimeter of water to lay their eggs. While we can't change the garbage situation in India, we can stop mosquitoes from breeding in them. Introducing the Killer Pack. A pack when disposed kills mosquito larvae outside the house, while the non-toxic coil fights mosquitoes inside, breaking the vicious cycle. The 100% biodegradable packaging is lined and printed with 5% active probiotic Bacillus thuringiensis that acts against mosquito larvae. This pack disintegrates into water and moist environments when disposed in places like garbage dumps, dustbins, garden ponds, stagnant water, and stormwater drains. This strain is approved and recommended by the WHO, the CDC, the ICMR, and the EPA, while causing no harm to birds, dogs, or any other species. We launched this packaging in the hot pockets of India where major mosquito-related diseases were on the rise.
જેટલા વધુ મચ્છરો તેટલા વધુ પ્રમાણમાં કિલર પેકનો ઉપયોગ થશે અને તેનો નિકાલ કરવામાં આવશે. ખરેખર મારા મત મુજબ આ એક ખૂબ જ સહેલી અને સ્વયં સંચાલિત પ્રક્રિયા છે.
The Killer Pack kills mosquitoes inside and out.
So that campaign won the Grand Prix in health and wellness, and it came out of India. It's really, I thought it was fantastic. Now we're coming to what I believe is the best part of the presentation, and this is about creative effectiveness. So WARC, which is an organization that looks at research in effectiveness, actually did a white paper and they presented it at Cannes this year. And they took data from 130,000 ads over the last 5 years. And what they determined is that 85% of ads sit below the attention threshold. And that's a terrifying statistic. And the reason for this is because of short-termism. So just for people who don't know, short-termism is about short-term activations. A lot of it is digital. It's looking for clicks. It's not about brand building. And again, while this presentation has been previously presented to classical marketers, this type of information is really relevant to anybody in business when it comes to brand building. And what WARC said to marketers, and again, to anybody in business, if you're investing in your brand, are you investing enough based on your share of market? Are you balancing your short-term activations versus your long-term brand building? In terms of media, it's about attention more than viewability. And the other thing, which sounds obvious, but it's not happening, is apply emotion and distinctiveness to supercharge your advertising. Build the memory bank via mental availability. You know, it's interesting, I'm going to talk a bit more about it just now, but I went to the International Marketing Council conference recently. And during the breaks, they were playing all the old ads from years ago, the BMW mouse, Mnet, Sun City, just Telkom, just so many of those. And everybody was celebrating those ads because we don't have them anymore. Because for the last 10 years, marketers have really been focusing on performance marketing, and everything's been really about digital, mostly about digital. And here's the thing, is that if you want to have mental availability, you need brand building. Then another lady who came to the IMC conference, who was really fantastic, is from LinkedIn. Her name's Tyrone Heat. And she said, she was talking about how marketers can create more value. And this is the really interesting thing where she said, most purchases start by somebody searching their memory and not Google. So it's really important to generate memories and not clicks so that you can build the memory bank by brand building. So here is a case study which I love. It's for a brand that everybody knows, McDonald's. And this was an interview in Cannes between Morgan Flatley, who's the Chief Marketing Officer of McDonald's, and Neil Arthur, who's the CEO of Wieden & Kennedy, who is probably the most creative agency in the world. And the reason why I have put this here is because it really does encompass most of the Cannes learnings, and again, learnings for any business. McDonald's had the status of being a global icon, but they were cultural wallpaper. They acknowledged that they weren't the most creative marketer. And one of the reasons why was that they were always focusing on their short-term promotions. So they appointed Wieden & Kennedy and began a 9-month-long journey. But it wasn't easy because McDonald's has 40,000 restaurants and serves 40 million customers a day. So they were really this big operational machine, and nothing was allowed to disrupt it. But here's the thing, is that they were talking to everybody. They were talking to everyone, and as a result of that, they were talking to no one. So the agency, Wieden & Kennedy, said that their biggest obstacle was that they kept thinking big, and now they needed to think small. They needed to become more personal. So the agency then went about, together with McDonald's, turning this big global brand into a more local personal brand, and said, let's act like a real person and not like a huge company. This was a massive task. And they started to focus on the people who loved them, their fans. And they found one of their biggest fans in Travis Scott, the rap singer. He'd been eating McDonald's since he was a kid. And they used Travis Scott as the face of McDonald's. But the real power came from the fact that they started to trust their agency, so they started to take risks. And they allowed Travis Scott to co-create with them. So Travis Scott had a say in the food that they were serving on the menu, in the merchandising, in the marketing. This was unheard of for McDonald's. And suddenly what started happening is the staff at McDonald's became really proud to be associated with them and to work for them. And this was something they hadn't had before. And then came growth. And the growth at McDonald's was huge. They became more confident, they co-created, they trusted their agency, they took risks, and that put McDonald's back into culture and transformed the brand. So everybody knows this man, Ryan Reynolds, as an actor. But he's not only an actor anymore, he's become a major, major force in the marketing and advertising industry. He's the owner of Aviation Gin, of Mint Mobile, of Wrexham Soccer Club, and now an agency called Maximum Effort that's done amazing work for brands around the world. And this was my favorite talk at Cannes by far. And he was interviewed by a lady called Wendy Clark. And she said, in a world of darkness, there's Ryan Reynolds, because he's always the optimist. And the things that he said to the industry were really interesting. He said, move at the speed of culture. And again, this is relevant for anybody in business. Move at the speed of culture. Culture moves really fast. Just look at TikTok. If a campaign's going to take 9 months to produce, you've lost out on the cultural element. It's too late. The other thing is, he said, ads should be fun. Over the last 3 years, and probably because of COVID, everything became so gloomy and so dark, and there was just no fun. And he said that the fun needs to be brought back into marketing. He said, add humor or emotion to your work. If you can get both, that's the unicorn, but build the memory bank. So he's got, for his Aviation Gin, he's got what he calls the Aviation Gin vasectomy commercial. I've watched it once. It's a little bit American cheesy, but I can tell you, and he acts in all his ads, which is also a bonus, but I can tell you that it went into my memory bank in terms of brand recognition of Aviation Gin. And it was really, I mean, he did a great job. The other thing that he says the ad industry have become an industry of rock polishers. Everybody's striving for perfection, and that's insane. The creative guys hate me when I say this, but he said the enemy of creativity is too much time and too much money. When you have less to work with, the constraints become the things to work with. And in order to be good, you need to be bad too. He said, fail fast and move on. And then, of course, what he spoke about, which we in South Africa know and are doing, is that diversity and inclusion are crucial for better stories, better brands, better everything. And he's actually put his money where his mouth in and has created a company called The Creative Ladder that gives previously disadvantaged kids in the US an opportunity to enter the marketing and ad industry. So I'm going to show you a couple of ads that are based on culture. And some of them, these three, the first three have a lot of humor in them. The fourth one is more relevant in terms of the message, but here is the first one.
Due to the pandemic, there's now a nationwide chicken wing shortage.
We usually have all these racks are all full of chicken wings.
Americans love chicken wings so much that in 2021, they ran out. Across the country, people had to cook what was in the fridge. But it didn't have to be that way, because overnight, Wingstop gave the country hope from a part of the chicken that wasn't in short supply. Thighs from Thigh Stop. With only days to act, they reinvented their entire brand, putting thighs everywhere wings were, launching thousands of virtual locations overnight, thighs on their menu, on their stores, even their most famous franchisee, Rick Ross.
Nah, we doing thighs.
Every single ad got saved by thighs.
Who ordered?
Thigh Stop thighs. You got chicken thighs? We didn't get Thigh Stop.
Rick Ross has come up with an alternative.
Wingstop announcing this morning it is hacking its own brand.
Wingstop has launched an online brand called Thigh Stop.
Also what my legs say after climbing more than 2 flights of stairs.
Thigh Stop.
Thigh Stop.
Ain't that crazy?
It looks so good.
So I saw this Thigh Stop commercial on Twitter with Rick Ross, and I had to get it.
This is it right here.
Look at them. Crispy.
So excited about this.
Countless people nationwide stepped up and did their part to eat a thigh and save America.
I think with all these ads, Howard, when you were asking earlier, does this great creativity work? When you look at the sales results, I think it's conclusive here that they do. This one is hilarious.
When it comes to adults in our state getting the vaccine, demand has been dropping now for weeks.
Have you seen this yet? A digital billboard driving around Charlotte with this message.
Don't get vaccinated, Wilmore Funeral Home. So this truck drove around Bank of America Stadium in Charlotte during Sunday's Carolina Panthers game.
This advertisement right here riding around during the Panthers game is hilarious.
Several people snapped photos of the van, many of which immediately went viral on social media.
And then there's a link to Wilmore Funeral Home. But here's the thing. Wilmore Funeral Home isn't actually a funeral home.
People who went to the website found this. Wilmore Funeral Home, get vaccinated now. If not, see you soon. Well, the funeral home is not real. When people clicked on the site, it brought them to the StarMed, a healthcare provider in the area,
where you can make a vaccine appointment.
Anytime you get one person vaccinated, it's a win.
Carrying an advertisement that read, "Don't get vaccinated." It was being
campaña para promover la vacunación contra el COVID. What's on the other side of that website? It's very, very genius of what they did.
And so I think everybody's wondering, did it work? Here's what we've discovered. StarMed, the area urgent care medical facility that you worked with on this campaign, tells us they have seen a 22% increase in vaccine appointment registrations.
And then when it comes to brand awareness, I think this is...
Ketchup? Ketchup? I'm in way over my head.
You want me to draw ketchup?
Okay.
Ketchup.
Food, ketchup bottle or something.
That's not a ketchup bottle. That's a shampoo.
Heinz bottle. Heinz ketchup bottle.
Old school.
If you were asked to draw ketchup, what would you draw?
And are there other brands besides
Heinz ketchup?
Heinz ketchup. They're one and the same.
So good.
Mustard.
That's mustard.
Yeah.
It's like the only ketchup that I know of.
Amazing work. And then this campaign, which Howard actually used for the promo, which is really interesting.
The British Museum is a public institution dedicated to human history, art and culture. Come discover over 80,000 works from around the world here in London. You are now viewing the Guigal Shield. Captain James Cook was a British event.
We're now looking at the Guigal Shield, which was taken from my people.
Collections in the British museums are premised on a simple idea. I'm proud of what my grandfather stole from yours.
The Rosetta Stone was not the discovery neither of the French, neither of the British. It was already discovered and reused in Egypt multiple times.
For us, it's not just a well-carved rock, it is a living ancestor.
This very important statue is on display in a museum thousands of miles away.
Say the British Museum is the world's largest receiver of stolen goods. We're launching an interactive tour of some of its most contested artifacts.
There is always a story behind every object that was made in the kingdom, and that is how we told our history.
There were two foreign powers in rivalry over Egypt. One of them won over the other, and they took the war spoils of the other.
I feel I've received a balanced narrative.
For many Assyrians, it was maybe the last time we could really stand up to people who were trying to bully us.
We sort of went around the world and took what we wanted, and it makes me feel a deep level of shame.
Museums around Europe are slowly realizing that exhibiting items taken by force hundreds of years ago from other countries is kind of gross. And it's about time. We can't change the past, but we can change how we engage with it in the present.
Yeah, quite shocking. So how did we do, South Africa? We did okay. 2 golds, 4 silvers, 6 bronzes. We could do better. Yeah, I mean, I think one of the learnings and something that was really insightful for us is to just look at how well India did. I mean, they just shot the lights out. And, you know, a market that's got a lot of similarities to ours, I think that looking at them and what they can do, I think we could probably do a little better than that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the 2 golds. So the first one is radio.
My boy JJ is very, very scared of germs. Back in 2020, we're in Bella Bella sharing a chicken peri-peri after putt-putt when a Tsetse fly toys on his couscous. JJ pulls out a BB gun. Bang, bang. Surprise, surprise. He missed, but I swat the khocho with a wat-wat. Dead as a dodo. Let's go 50-50, I murmur. But JJ says, no, I'll get the bull. You got the khocho. He really hates germs. That's why he's an anti-vaxxer. He's opposed to people getting their jabs. The last thing he wants for festive is a brand new virus. Or to re-gift it to his mama, baba, or gogo. It's a win-win. Some things only work in twos. So if you need a second jab, get yours manje. It's our best shot at getting back to normal. Savannah, it's dry, but you can drink it. Not for persons under the age of 18. That's a no-no.
And then finally, the campaign that everyone's been talking about. This campaign won gold at Cannes, gold at Loeries, and on Thursday night at the Effie Awards, which is the Effective Advertising Awards, it won the only Grand Prix. Camilla, who's on this panel, is the creative director behind this campaign, and this is Carling Black Label's Bride Armor.
women and children in South Africa.
Heard about the shocking story of this young woman
following some horrific incidents
where the high level of violence against women is.
We know in marriage there's a link between men who abuse alcohol and sometimes abuse their wives.
And tonight we're looking at the impact of one very innovative campaign, the Carling Black Label No Excuse Bride Armor campaign.
When I was watching that bride walking down here, my heart broke.
And put on this armor just in case they find themselves being hurt or being abused by their partner.
It is challenging South African men to take a new vow to act to eliminate gender-based violence.
And thank you. That's my presentation.
And I'm still left absolutely shattered by watching some of those ads. If we can ask all of our panelists to turn your cameras and your mics back on, please. Camilla, just a huge congratulations to you. That last work, the bride armor, is just simply astounding.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. And Nkgabiseng, of the ones that we've seen so far, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, so much of that is inspiring. And I think tonally you can see, we talked a little bit about it, you know, our brand's in the position to do the right thing and like get the sustainability work done that most of us need in our countries, and touched on how well India did. And that piece around the mosquitoes, I mean, I think most of us who grow up in townships where there's just like lack of sanitation, you know, running, like the water kind of pools around and it's kind of unhygienic and children play in it, completely relate to that. And I feel like those solutions and those ideas could absolutely work in our market and could also come from our market. So yeah, super inspiring.
Mandi Fine, we've worked together in agencies that you've had. And if you had asked me a month ago, what do you think of the British Museum returning the artifacts that they've taken from around the world? I'd say, oh, please, it's all in the past. Let's move on with it. And then I saw that ad and something just touched me, that these things have been looted and stolen from around the world. Whether it's diamonds from India or South Africa, or the Rosetta Stone from Egypt, or the Elgin marbles from Greece. What was it that made that ad just talk to me?
You know what I think what is so brilliant about it is that there's a flip in the narrative. So the fact that the tour shifted the narrative, you know, I suppose we can debate the question of whether the artifacts should be returned or whether we rethink how new museums will happen in the future. But to flip the narrative of what is and view it with a different lens, I think was the genius of that campaign. And yeah, it's a real winner. And we do look back at history with a different view as our world changes. And I think that's the brilliance of it.
Doug, from a client perspective, what did you think of the work that Anne showed?
So good to be back. Thank you for having me. And to be honest, I'm largely terrified and intimidated by this panel. But yeah, it's an incredibly strong body of work. I think for the second year in a row now, the kind of work that's being recognized and applauded is the kind of work that uses creativity to solve a real world problem. And so you see, you know, a preference for, you know, social activism type work which, you know, is transformative, which gives voice to previously voiceless people, and whether those are minority groups or, in the case of, you know, Carling Black Label, a majority, you know, women in South Africa get a voice as a result of this kind of creativity, which is of course incredibly astonishing. The challenging part from the client perspective is being able to understand there's a difference between purpose for purpose sake and purpose for profit, and that hasn't always been necessarily clear. And so the way these things are funded is through having successful businesses which have means which allow them to fund campaigns. And so you want something which is a sustainable business practice, but also a sustainable problem that's solved in the world. And I think that's something which we still have some work to go to navigate.
Well, Doug, sorry, Anne.
I just wanted to say, I think Doug's right. I think that at Cannes this year, there was a lot of purpose fatigue. I think people were really getting tired of seeing purpose for purpose sake. And it's more about actions than speaking. If you're going to have a purpose, you need to actually act on it. Don't just talk about it, because it's been around for a long time and there's becoming a lot of cynicism with it.
So, Doug, you say, let's solve real world problems. And I want to show the advert that you, in fact, commissioned, okay, because that shows a real world problem that we're all living through. And then I'd love our panel to actually talk about this real world problem.
Sure.
So let me just get on to share my screen.
Tonight we bring you a very different story. Let's meet Ishmael Kominati and his family.
Welcome, John. I've seen him on TV. Give me a moment. It's Annie Manifesto time. Annie Manifesto. Stage to stage 4. Stage 2 to stage 4. This is our generator.
It's called Andre.
They just for show.
This one's called Kubert. This one's called Kusile.
I love our Arctic chamber.
We don't have to go outside to freeze. We can freeze right here.
The cold water makes me feel alive.
Cold water's good for the veins.
Tightens up everything.
It's great for hide and seek.
Please, stage 4.
Okay, with stage 4, you get 4 free sides. Stage 4 load shedding will be extended by 9 days.
When days are dark, sides are many. I'm Shahan Ramkisur. Wow.
It's the CR17 model. Should work, but it doesn't.
So, Doug, what's something that we're living through so relevant to our lives? Didn't it cost you a lot of money to offer free sides per level of load shedding?
Yeah, it costs plenty of money. I mean, where it came from is there's a very real world thing that happens when there's no power. People can't cook at home. And so, we are a solution to, people's dinner time troubles. And it's always at dinner time, that's when peak household usage sort of goes up. So in order to drive preference, for our meal, we wanted, the brief to the agency really was, how do we get people to look forward to load shedding? How do we get them to celebrate? And the worse it gets, we want people to feel even better about it. And so based on the levels of load shedding, one of our sort of signature meals is a full chicken with a number of sides. Although, to be honest, we've had load shedding for more than a decade. We've never been past level 4. And that meal only goes up to 4 sides. So even though we broke a new record, this thing got to stage 6, go South Africa. We couldn't meet that. Even there, we had to draw the line with it. But what we saw with that, because you can also, and Camilla spoke about this in the pre-show, we scrape social media, see what the mood and the sentiment is of the country, and it's just been on a downward slide for a really, really long time, and it's mostly done for younger people. Younger people traditionally have always been optimistic, they're enthusiastic, they are creative, they're the go-getters, they don't have the kind of baggage that their parents, like people like us do. And when you see them starting to give into despair, it's a real genuine concern. So to make something like that, which generally gets people to smile, it's a counter narrative. When most people are moaning about load shedding, you get them to look forward to it. And the impact that we saw was 10% increase in new people to Nando's. So people who had never used Nando, certainly not used our app before, used it. There was almost a 20% increase in sales. And all of that offsets some of the difficulties we have as a business in trying to manage, during dark times. I mean, to run generators in a lot of our restaurants is obviously incredibly expensive because we have to fill the generators with Chanel No. 5 because that's at least what it costs at the moment to buy petrol and diesel. So having these kind of incremental sales to offset the costs just to keep the lights on has been, an enormous business benefit to franchisees, company-owned stores, and the like.
So in terms of brands and sense, this is a success for you guys. A commercial
very much so.
success.
Yeah, hugely so. Yeah, very, very definitely. I mean, like all campaigns, they have a beginning, a middle, and the end. So we suspended it. That's not even a pun, although it sounds like one. Probably about 2 weeks ago now, because we've been running it through most of winter, and so its impact over time does decay. That's how promotions work. But it's genuinely one of the most successful promotions and campaigns we've run in some time. So very thrilled about it.
And does everyone want a client like Nando's?
Yes. Yes, they don't, and it just goes back to your earlier question. I'm not saying it because Doug's on the call. The agencies do love Doug, and the reason why is because he's not only smart, but he's fair, and he builds relationships based on trust. I know that for a fact. He really is everything. He's very loyal, very, very loyal. So yeah, do people want to work with Nando's? Absolutely. Do people want to work with Doug even more? And that's a fact. Doug, you can pay me later.
No, exactly. The money's on its way. Thought I was being thrown to the canned lines here.
Mandi, you've judged canned lines. What's it like sitting in the judging room?
Wow, I think I completely underestimated the experience. I judged in 2017, pre the pandemic, and then I also did a virtual stint in 2020, a shortlist jury of health and wellness, and in 2017 I was on the pharma jury. So my experience and my background is in healthcare. I met with Anne during the judging in Cannes that year, and I think she'll attest to my absolute, I was blown away. I was in awe by the meaningful, purposeful work that I was judging in the health pharma category. Like you just saw Killer Pack from India winning in the health and wellness category, the ability to do good and to save lives in the category I was judging was mind-blowing, and I didn't quite understand when I got there the magnitude of the job and the honor and the privilege that it was to be exposed in that forum to such amazing creative minds in the jury room, but also to the work. The work is an expression of the greatest creativity in the world. And I think, as Anne mentioned earlier, it's not just agencies. I remember very clearly arriving in Cannes and wanting to see the beach and know where I was. And the lady at the reception of my hotel told me in French that Google had the beach, and I didn't understand what she meant. And I got to the beach, and literally Google had built a platform, a stage, and had taken over the entire beach. And what we're seeing is this convergence of technology, all different innovative organizations where creativity merges with traditional advertising to break the bounds and come up with ideas that are just astounding, like you've just seen. So yes, absolute privilege.
That's a great segue, because we asked you to, in fact, choose a piece of work that you loved, and it uses some technology.
Yes, and it is from 2017, so it's an old piece of work, but I think it's still relevant and very relevant in our current world. So yeah, if you can play it, or do you want me to play it?
I'm happy to play it. Let me share my screen with everyone.
I'm a dying.
Well, that's not it. Sorry, forgive me. I'm going to.
I'm a dying.
There we go.
Aí tira a agulha.
De tirar a agulha? Tem uma agulhinha. Tenho, mas é pequenininha. A mãe tá aqui pra te ajudar.
Não quero, eu não quero. Eu quero, já tenho 5 anos. É só você usar o Eu tenho medo.
Tudo bem, Luigi? Você gosta de super-herói?
Oi! Você voltou! Você voltou! Nossa, eu não posso acreditar! Ó, primeiro o pólen de gelo. É bem rapidinho. Vem cá, peraí. Pronto. Agora o fruto de fogo. Mas ó, vamos lá. Bem rapidinho. Peraí. Deixa eu pegar aqui. Vai, escudinho. Vai, escudinho. Funciona, funciona, funciona. Obrigada, obrigada.
Caramba, filho. O que você acha disso?
Legal.
É a primeira vez que eu vejo, em 15 anos da minha atuação profissional com vacinas, que a realidade virtual pode transferir a dor em entretenimento.
Ele chorou em todas que ele tomou desde que ele nasceu. E dessa vez não. Até achei que ele ia dar um showzinho aqui hoje.
Porque quando eu era pequena eu tinha medo, mas agora não tem mais não.
And Mandi, tell us about this Reach for a Dream picture before us.
The reason I chose that ad is because I think virtual reality is very much becoming part of our worlds, and I think that in healthcare it is a beautiful place to apply this in a very real and meaningful setting. So a vaccine might be a painful moment, but there are a lot of children who spend many months, if not their lives, in hospital environments. And we're working with Reach for a Dream to bring virtual reality into the public sector hospitals where children spend many months. And in COVID, Reach for a Dream couldn't fulfill dreams to these children. And so we used virtual reality to kind of take them out of that very clinical, challenging setting. And now working with the VR company Eden, Reach for Dream are bringing clinically relevant kind of stories to children who have to undergo very traumatic experiences like MRIs and chemo and the like for their children who are life-threatened. So I think it's very applicable to healthcare, and it's happening right here in South Africa, and they're beautiful stories and beautiful things happening. And that's why I wanted to show that one.
So Mandi, you mentioned virtual reality, but let's talk for a moment about the metaverse. Camilla, nonsense, or is this our future?
You know, I do go back and forth a bit, but I have to agree that it is going to be a big part of our future. It terrifies me as much as it excites me. The other day I was invited to a big conference, and I assumed that I would have to spend, or at least Ogilvy would have to spend an awful lot of money sending me there. But I received my headset and I had my sort of special gloves and everything needed. And next minute I was at a big conference in Shanghai, and it was absolutely unreal. And I feel it's just getting more accessible. It's getting easier for everyone to get. I hear rumors about the next sort of big thing being a suit, that, you know, a low-cost suit everyone will be able to put on. And they're looking into how we're able to touch one another through the metaverse as well. So as I said,
suit. They're called haptic suits, and it gives you feedback, touch and feel, and
well, there you go. You know way more about it than I do. But
I'm of the younger generation.
Oh, you see, now I'm past it. But it's something we've got to get on board with. It's something the brands have to get on board with. I still see a lot of reluctance coming from client side, but it's time.
Nkgabiseng, you're of the younger generation. What do you think when we say metaverse?
Look, I feel kind of hopeful because I just feel like there's so many accessibility problems, and I guess Camilla touched on it. You know, we can solve problems by like cutting those barriers. You know, there are people around the world who can't get to places quickly enough. There are people who need to share ideas in interesting ways that might not be able to frequently get together. So I feel hopeful. I just hope we don't just make you know, random uses of it like parties. So I'm hoping that we really use it for the good that it has the potential to do.
So I want to talk about the younger generation, because obviously one of the most important things that anyone can do is vote. And many people in younger generations tend to not see voting as relevant to their lives. And Nkgabiseng, you selected an advert from the United States about voting. Tell us about it, and then we're going to play and come back and discuss it.
Sure, yeah, I was so inspired by this piece of work, particularly because we're going into elections. And in the last round, all of us are aware, most young people didn't even go to the polls. So we had a low showing from people under 25. You know, in South Africa, we don't have a big culture of satisficing, which is picking the lesser of evils. So we go, I don't know who to vote for. I don't like any of these people. I don't feel connected to any of the causes. So I'm staying home. You know, young people even turned away from the polls. So some of the parties were able to get them there, but they'd get there and just feel like, I'm not connecting with this cause. So I love that piece of work because I think it really is making the feeling that you have when something impactful happens in the political sphere. So in America, the event that happened right before the elections, you still had like really, really hot emotion. And then turning that hot emotion into something actionable by the city of Chicago. So going like, you feel this like horrible injustice, this is where you can correct it. And I feel inspired to create campaigns, even if they're not for political parties, just to push the country duty of getting people to vote. The things that make us angry, like load shedding, in those moments when people are like really angry about like a stage 12, that's when you need to like communicate with them and say, this is exactly what you need to vote about. And so I really love this piece of work. It's called Boards of Change.
Fantastic. Let's have a look and we'll come back and discuss it.
I would die here. I would die, man. You need to take us. I can't breathe. I can't breathe.
Overnight, Minneapolis on fire.
You want more the people you're supposed to
The damage was widespread. Windows shattered. Many businesses now boarded up.
These boards were on windows of storefronts because people knocked out the windows because they felt like they didn't have a voice. And now he's turned them into a voting pool, a big FU.
There's a constant attack on the civil rights of Black voters in this country.
This moment now is an opportunity for us to channel this energy into constructive, lasting, democratic engagement.
1 in 5 eligible people in this country are not even registered to vote.
I will be one of the examples that say, yes, we do have a voice.
Gotta get our vote. Now's the time.
Demand a transformation, a systemic transformation, and that we have a seat at the table.
And now the
of getting out the vote. Kevin
called
Tibble.
Boards of Change.
Exhibition
The
Boards of
Chicago Board of
Change.
Elections is expecting record-breaking turnout.
Amazing campaign.
So Nkgabiseng, what's the South African version of that?
Yeah, well, there's a challenge for us to think of that. We've got so many problems. So what are we doing with those problems to sensitize ourselves and not to get and I think like some of our problems as young people is we kind of get desensitized or we get cause fatigue. So there are too many things to think about. Am I going to think about gender-based violence? I think about potholes, think about load shedding, and then you kind of just bury your head in the sand. But if we can look at each one of those things as an opportunity, each one of those problems as an opportunity to go, we need to vote to change the scenario in this country. I think every creative wants that brief, at least I believe so.
Yeah.
So Camilla, you've obviously gone to a well-known brand. You fundamentally changed it. You put gender-based violence on a Carling Black label agenda. What's next for a brand like that? How do you follow up? What's act number 2?
So the No Excuse platform for Carling Black label was actually developed several years ago. I think it was 2018. When the brand sort of first discovered that, there's another side to this coin, which is this hidden pandemic that I think sort of very few people were speaking about at the time, which is gender-based violence. And as a brand, they are incredibly aware of what their product does and how, there are instances where using the product has equated to a bigger sort of surgence of gender-based violence. So it's something they know and it's something they wanted to face head on. So in 2018, they started the No Excuse platform. It was before my time at Ogilvy. And the first piece, which did incredibly well, from a brand impact point of view to a newsworthy point of view, it also won in Cannes, was a piece called Soccer Songs for Change. And everything about what they do is intercepting people when they need to hear this message the most. And year after year, we've used that No Excuse platform to find sort of the stickiest, most tangible insight that we can find over that period and activate on it. So in this instance, this year, we just couldn't sort of get over the statistics of, during the pandemic, how much gender-based violence was going on in homes and specifically between intimate partners. And to just sort of believe that, the very notion of marriage, everything it's about is to feel protected, by your loved one. And the fact that the statistics said that when you stand in front of your loved one and you say, I do, that you're actually upping your chances of abuse, according to the stats. And that over the last year was an insight that absolutely blew our minds. And it felt like we could create a very provocative piece off of it. But, in saying that, it's incredibly hard to do this work as well, to understand the realities, to speak to hundreds of survivors through Lifeline and put a piece like this together. But during the fashion show, when she walked down the catwalk at the very end, no one was expecting it. And we had invited several of the survivors just to participate. And as she hit the end of the catwalk, one just stood up and just sort of started applauding, and the rest did. And you realize that it's actually having real effect on people, which was a wonderful moment to see, a very tearful moment as well. But then from that point, the dress did move beyond the catwalk into sort of places we know, according to data, gender-based violence is very high. So into taverns, into malls. And then from then we were able to retarget the full audience and ask them to sign up for something we call Champions for Change, which is a course that men can take in order to try and better themselves.
So, Anne, clearly Camilla loves a bit of controversy. It's 8:20. Do we presume that most of the youngsters have gone to bed?
No, I'm sure they're all watching.
Okay.
I'm sure they're all here, and I'm sure they're all excited to see what Camilla's going to show, as well as the older people.
We need to tell you that if you are sensitive and easily offended, please turn off the webinar right now. We're going to show you an amazing piece of work selected by Camilla that's a little provocative, really interesting topic, maybe a little risque. So if you are offended, please feel free to put us on mute for the next few minutes. But this is an absolute amazing piece of work that we completely love.
A recent survey revealed that nearly half, 44% of over 65-year-olds claim that their favourite pastime is having sex.
Among over 65s, sexually transmitted infections are rising.
We don't need them.
Why not?
Because I'm not going to get pregnant at 65.
Relate have created a series of vegetable-themed condom packet designs under the banner of the Horticultural Society.
You did say horticultural, didn't you?
I said horticultural.
Horticultural.
Got aubergine, avocado.
Of course you have.
Oh, I put the aubergine at the front.
The condom.
Firm and ripe. I might be right, but I'm not firm.
Aubergine, large-rooted.
Oh!
Rich in vitamin D when enjoyed regularly, either indoors or outdoors.
I need to find me a courgette.
They're not using protection. Hence the increase in sexually transmitted infections.
sex therapist.
As soon as I leave here today, I'm going to a garden centre.
Camilla, does humor sell?
Sorry?
Does humor sell?
Humor does sell. I mean, I saw this piece about a week ago. It actually came out of my agency in the UK, so Ogilvy, London. And I think after a couple of years of seeing sort of highly emotional, deeply purposeful work, it was really great to see something that just made me smile. It also made me cringe a little. I mean, I hadn't yet thought of people 65 and above doing it, but I was forced to. But I think, you know, it has all the qualities of a great campaign aside from the humor. It's firstly based on, you know, an awesome insight. I mean, who knew that people over the age of 65 just weren't using condoms, and this is a situation that they find themselves in, and STIs are spreading. And I think it's a real creative solution, putting it in a very unexpected place, which is these garden centers. I can just imagine how surprised people were when they got in there. But it also doesn't feel like an embarrassing way of discussing it. And I'm a big fan of British humor, and this for me was just that. So, you know, I think with all the seriousness, you've got to have those things that just make you smile. And that's also creating an emotional connection with an audience. And I just, you know, this came out and instantly it hit all the papers. I think it's just won in the LIA awards, and I think it's going to be a big winner with Cannes now. And I hope by the end of this campaign, we'll see real results. So I'm looking forward to seeing the effectiveness. But, you know, this is a new product, which I'm sure will sell and will stay on the racks for years to come. But yeah, I definitely had a laugh. Hey, Anne? I'm sure you did too.
I think it's fantastic. I think it's got the humor in it, it's got the emotion in it, but it makes people sit up and actually discuss this because, you know, people over 65, you know, sexually transmitted diseases are kind of something I hadn't thought of. So if this is a thing, which clearly it is, and using condoms is going to prevent it, well, there you go. So again, it's another example, again, of creativity can change behavior, can change the world, and it can do good. It does do good.
And
I'd love to ask our audience, sorry, Camilla, just before you comment, I'd love to ask our audience what they thought of that last ad, as well as which was their favorite that they've seen so far this evening. And sorry, I interrupted you. Back to you, Camilla.
Oh no, it's just one little follow-up point, which I feel I absolutely have to mention. It was in an article I read about it. Also, they are biodegradable. So when you're done, you can just chuck them in the garden.
Doug, I want to know, because your brand, Nando's, is the master of humor. Which has been your most successful ad that you've had?
Good grief. I'm still recovering from that and the fact that my mother's watching this as well. What a superb piece of work. God, success is an interesting one. Good grief. In 2017, Nando's just turned 30, because we turned 35 this year. And we released this commercial, which was a reminder to society. I think really good advertising takes an unconscious truth and makes it conscious. You've just seen a superb example of exactly the unconscious truth of STIs in pensioners in the UK made conscious. And similarly, in 2017, we'd seen, this was the height of the Jacob Zuma era. It was building up, not unlike what we have now, toward a big ANC elective conference. And we released a commercial which reminded South Africans of all the difficult stuff that we've had to put up with and have endured, not just recently, but over the last couple hundred years. And South Africans are a resilient bunch of people. We really can make, we can make something out of most things that people give up on. So we didn't want to prescribe what the solution was, but just to remind South Africans that we have agency, that we can, and as we always have, fix our we use the S word. And it was incredibly well received because it was fun, because there were earnest things in there, but there were also lighthearted things in there as well. We changed finance ministers faster than we changed eyebrows. And the only part of the ad that I didn't like, and I had a big debate with the agency about this, was the finale where we had imagined the Gupta brothers, ducking the country. Because that hadn't happened. So everything was true except for that part. That this is not a fantasy, this is a real ad. We want real people to take it really seriously. But you learn to trust your agency, and they write more than I am. So it so happened that the following February, on Valentine's Day, the Gupta brothers did duck the country. We're still waiting for them to come back, of course. If they can come back via the British Museum, they'll save us a plane ticket. They'll return some stuff.
They're certainly not one of our national treasures.
No, not at all.
Doug,
so
I want to say your xenophobia ad is still my favorite ad of all time.
100%. No, it's world class. Yeah, that's not more than a decade old. And so while I agree with Ryan Reynolds that brands need to move at the speed of culture, real true human insights, don't vacillate as the cultural trends and norms come and go. That xenophobia was made in 2011, so it's more than a decade old now, exactly. And it's still true today. We could run that today. I mean, the SABC won't run it because they thought that their audience were too dumb to understand it, so they didn't want to flight it. But everyone else was prepared to flight it. And so, it's a world-class piece of work. It haunts us still.
And we closing up in another minute or two, but Camilla gave us another ad. And I'd love to just show it as maybe our last ad for the evening, because it seems so relevant to South Africa. And one of the big problems we have in South Africa is allowing average South Africans to be able to access credit. Many people's no credit history, the unbanked community, it really is a huge problem. And, there's a South American economist, De Soto, who said, give everyone title deeds to the land that they live on, even if it's a shack, because they can use that as security to go get a loan from the bank.
Yeah.
And there's this amazing ad that Camilla suggested we have a look at, which almost works around those problems, because even though people are unbanked, it's not like they've never had credit before. So I'd love us to look at that and then come back under your leadership, Anne, just for final comments before we wrap up for this evening.
Thanks, Harvey.
I don't think I shared there. Let me just do that one last time. Sorry.
Millions of low-income women in Mexico cannot study or start a business because they don't have access to credit. 83% of them don't have a bank payment history that allows for verification of their payment behavior, thus having their loan applications rejected.
Solicitar un crédito, nadie me lo ha querido dar porque no cuento con historial crediticio.
Paradoxically, they are women who have received loans from neighborhood stores all their lives, so they have a long credit history. Just that these credit records don't appear in the financial information centers, but the accounting records of thousands of shopkeepers throughout the country. That is why We Capital, in search of the financial inclusion of women in Mexico, launched Data Tienda, a financial information center within the reach of banks, which recovers the credit history of millions of Mexican women from the neighborhood businesses' accounting records. To collect data, women should only enter the information of at least 5 trusted stores on datatienda.mx. So the system, through WhatsApp bots, automatically collects qualitative and quantitative information from shopkeepers, and it creates a credit score, which analyzes even more variables than the traditional information system.
Es una central de información financiera como cualquier otra, solo que con mujeres no bancarizadas. En Data Tienda podemos consultar su comportamiento de pago y darles crédito con un margen menor de riesgo.
Today, 23% of the women on the platform have received microcredits for their businesses. And in just a few months, over 10,300 credit histories have been generated with information from nearly 50,000 shopkeepers throughout the country.
Miles de mujeres han recibido microcréditos para sus emprendimientos gracias a Data Tienda.
Inclusión financiera para las mujeres en México.
Historias de crédito que cambian historias de vida.
No, a mí ya había 2 veces que me negaban el préstamo y hasta ahora me lo dieron.
Con el crédito que me hicieron, yo me compré esta máquina.
We are recovering credit histories to change life stories. Data Tienda.
Real solutions to real life problems. It really is remarkable.
Remarkable.
So Anne, we've gone 90 minutes this evening. Tell us the trends, tell us what we should look out for, and tell us what is next from this remarkable panel of some of the most creative minds in South Africa.
Wow, I mean, that's a really big question to ask. I just think that, you know, with the people on this panel and the people in this industry, not just the agencies, but the marketers, we have some very, very smart people. I think everybody's going to continue to do great work. They're going to look at how creativity can solve problems, how creativity really is a force for growth and therefore a force for good. And the more creativity that everyone comes up with, the better, because it changes lives and it can save lives, and the more the better.
I'm going to ask all of our panelists for one last comment, but my favorite comment of the evening comes from Brenda, who saw the advert on a little earlier and is hoping they bring out a cucumber collection in the not too distant future. So Nkgabiseng, last thoughts from you before we close up this evening.
Yeah, I just feel I'm also inspired to see what we can do with brands to make South Africa a better place. Like that agenda piece really hits home. And I think our brands are ready for it and probably have the means for it. So I'm excited, and thank you so much for this evening.
Camilla, from your side, what's next in store for us from the Ogilvy Creative House?
Well, just watch this space. I think you'll see some more sort of innovative product solutions and some more purpose work that has real brand impact. But I think, something that just hit me in Cannes now this year was someone came sort of wobbling over to me holding a big glass of rosé and said, you South African, you're just so lucky. I said, well, why? They went, because you've got so many problems to solve and you can use your brands to do that. And I thought, that's an excellent point. We're sort of hustlers here. We are innovative. And as long as we keep that spirit, let's keep creating creative solutions that actually make real change. And that's what gets me up in the morning. And I want to do that every day, I guess.
Amazing. You'll see that Brenda said she's going to gift her clients these condoms with every vegetable garden that they plant. Doug Place, you busy completing your ad now, I presume. That's for your December campaign. Tell us what's in store.
Yeah, sure. I hope, I love what Camilla said. All great creative stories start in chaos, all of them. And so, chaotic potential is something we have in abundance. I hope we tackle it with something other than just earnestness, if I'm honest. Anne mentioned purpose fatigue a little earlier. We're seeing more and more data now saying that, purpose-driven campaigns aren't really actually that good in the long term for business. And the thing we have to solve for, we need to grow businesses so we can employ more people. This is the number one problem facing young people and generally people in South Africa. It's unforgivable that we have so much potential and 74% of all young people don't have jobs or access to it. That's absolutely outrageous. And I think the role of creativity to build businesses and I've often been, it's chafed me when, we're almost embarrassed to make profits. We're embarrassed to say that it was successful because it seems like profit is in conflict with purpose. And I think the two have to hold hands and be friends. I think to run successful businesses which grow, create an inclusive economy, and that's something which we desperately need right now. And I hope we can do that by being able to laugh a little bit and take things on the chin as we do as South Africans. It's very hard to be afraid of things if you laugh at them. And so I think just because we don't have power doesn't necessarily mean that we're powerless.
Mandi Fine, tell us about the power we have.
So I want to just close by saying I think that we have, as Camilla mentioned, the most amazing opportunity as South Africans, and not only an opportunity, I think there are incredible things happening on the ground in this country. Amazing creative things, amazing things that are happening in the non-profit space. And my vision and dream is that we bring some of our creativity that's in this room and in the country to the NGO sector, and we help lift that sector. As we've seen in these global awards, where we tell the stories of what's happening on the ground. In beautiful ways, and we show how much amazing stuff is happening in this country, and I think we can. And so Fine for Good is my next challenge in my life in this space, and that's what I would like to do, is to bring this creativity to the NGO sector. So thank you and the Jewish Report for kind of giving us the voice. Yeah. Because I think the negative press that we are faced with, this is such a beautiful counter to that. And I want to say thank you. Thank you, Howard.
Absolute pleasure. So, Anne, we didn't win all the big prizes. We did okay, but we didn't win all the big prizes. What do we do to win at Cannes next year?
Wow, what do we need to do? I think we need to come up with more incredible ideas. I think that if you look at some of the ideas that did win, and I didn't put all of them up, but there were some really cool ideas that Vodacom did. I think that we've got to be, again, culturally relevant. I think we've got to take more risks. And we've got to have the relationships with our clients that enable us to be able to do that in order to win. If India can do it, I think so can we.
So to our remarkable panel this evening, thank you all for joining us again. Next year, please put it in your diary. We expect you back, but we expect many more Grand Prix from all of you over the next 12 months ahead. To everyone who's watched us, Thank you so much for watching us this evening. Don't forget to book for Jewish Achiever Awards coming up on the 19th of November. Our next one is in fact going to be talking to the youth of South Africa and finding out what the youth of South Africa think is most important to them. That's coming up in the next week or two. We'll see you then. Good night, everyone. Thank you so much to our panel. Please leave us a message in the chat. We can't wait to see you all again. Ciao.
Bye.
Bye.
Sweet. Somebody said I'm a treat to hear. Hi.